So how are you enjoying it so far since we're on the second day?
Oh, this is really, got a tremendous positive energy here, record turnout. It's warm, but doesn't seem to be, affecting people's spirits. They're really seem to be enjoying the conference.
All right. Can you tell me what's going on right now about your story? Any projects?
I'm traveling. I'm pretty much scheduled, through the end of the year in different places around the country and other countries, and it's something I'm, going to stick with. I'm trying to, promote understanding, and so it's. I'm also getting a lot more positive feedback, from people in person and, emails from around the world, and so it seems to be improving over time.
Yeah. You have a movie coming out pretty soon, or is that still in production?
Well, there's a movie called 701, the movie. It refers to the 701 unresolved cases from Project Blue Book. That's in production right now. It's a documentary, but it's for theatrical release. And there'll be a considerable amount of high-quality reenactments in there. But other than that, I've been in discussion with a number of production companies about a remake of Fire in the Sky, and nothing solid yet on that. I'm in no hurry. I just want to make sure that it's done more accurately this time.
I read your book, and the sci-fi version of reenactment, it was pretty good. It was pretty dramatic.
Well,
really
there's
you.
been a few reenactments that were pretty decent, and this Travis film, an award-winning documentary, it's got some good CGI in it. It's won like 10 or 11 different awards in various film festivals. And then as far as things that have already been broadcast, at the top of the list I would put the Sci-Fi Channel's Paranormal Witness. They did a 90-minute special just about this incident, and it was really movie quality stuff.
Yeah, they even got some of the subtle differences from the movie version. The 90s got it right.
Yeah, they even got the truck right.
Yeah, I
they
thought
used
so.
The 1965 International. Even the Paramount movie didn't do that.
What is the age group that people are attracted to your story?
It spans every age group. I know a lot of people that come up to me all the time at this conference, or emailing me and say, I saw this movie when I was 6 years old or 8 years old, and it affected me my whole life. But every age group, there's people older than me that say, I remember when this happened, and it's something that captured my attention from the beginning.
Yeah, right. Any last words for us, for our viewers?
Well, in regard to this subject in general, whatever your feelings are about it, get the facts first. Careful. Is it a fact, or is this just something somebody said? People come down on both sides of this issue with unsupported statements, and so get the facts, check the facts first.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Actually, Linda doesn't talk about this, I believe. But very good. There are these different groups. Let's call them the ebens, let's call them the greys, the insectoids, the reptoids, the Nordic blonde. They're all part of this.
After a while, I'll be honest with you, as far as I know, I've never seen an alien. I know some people I wonder about, but as far as I know, I've never actually met an alien. As far as I know, I can't even actually say that I've seen a UFO for real. I've seen some strange lights in the sky, but I wouldn't kind of try to convince anybody what that is. But meeting people like this, and in my experience over the years talking to pilots, both military and civilian, and police officers and air traffic controllers, military people, after a while, you just have to say, look, all these people are lying, and all these people are making stuff up. So this is how that I began to realize that it's all very real. Richard Thielman.
I wanted to ask you where you get your ideas to do your art.
I don't know. I've always loved catchy sayings and play on words and sayings, and always loved outer space to begin with. Originally wanted to be an astronaut, so this is probably as close I'm going to get to it. And some of it's a little bit edgy, but some of it, you know, this is a stuffed circuit board with an unstuffed one underneath, and it happened to have these buses here. It looks like a keyboard, so I called it the Rick Wakeman because I always loved Yes. So whether it's music related or kind of humorous, like this is serious, quit clowning around. I'm from Chicago, so I love those over clowns, so I have a couple of those. Love the Blues Brothers, one of my favorite movies, so it does kind of personally relate to my individual likes.
Right. What do people say when they see your art, when they come to your booths?
First thing they do is wow, and they laugh.
That's what I did yesterday.
Because it's comical. It makes you smile, and everybody loves humor, and people will buy things to give to somebody else just as a conversation piece, you know, or a gift that they can relate to that art.
Yeah, and you do a kind of a different type of art.
I do more edgy stuff, like I've done this thing here, the nano bugs.
This is called Hangar 1225, so, you know, Hangar 51, it's a Christmas tree stand, so 1225 being Christmas, we thought 1225, so it's
that would fit in.
The doll head, and she made the hat and the glasses, and this Egyptian kind of scene with a bunch of different things. These robots up here.
I do the robots that I do a lot of.
Yeah.
And then I just did these alien plates just because it fits in.
Stan, I wanted to ask you about this popular topic right now this year about disclosure. What's your opinion about that?
Well, I am not a member of either of the big disclosure projects because I think there is a very important national security considerations about flying saucers. Why should we put, say, data we may have learned from wreckage of UFOs on the table if the Russians and Chinese don't put out what they have? And, you know, are we ready? Is the planet ready to switch from a nationalistically oriented economy and political entity to a planetary one? I don't think so. I mean, we're spending $1 trillion this year on things military. That tells you we don't trust each other very much on this planet. So I think disclosure is kind of a pipe dream. I don't think it's going to happen. Now, I'll admit, I do believe if we had a Woodward and Bernstein putting in the time and effort, we can demonstrate that there is a cover-up. That's easy. I mean, if you look at your first, you know, the NSA, because of Freedom of Information Act, distributed 156 pages of top secret Umbra NSA UFO stuff. There's a little problem. You can read one sentence per page. Not very exciting.
So you don't think it's due to the Freedom of Information Act? They're not just giving us pieces, just to put the pieces together for ourselves.
They give it away as little as they can. It's easy to prove there's a cover-up. It's more difficult to prove what's being covered up. But we need to consider the implications.
That's good. That's good.
You know, there are implications on our planet. I mean, we tend to forget we're spending $1 trillion this year on things military on planet Earth. That says there's some problems here. The Washington Post wrote 3 years ago a column about military intelligence in the United States. The budget that year was $52.9 billion. NSA, CIA, NRO. That's a hell of a lot of money. That's secret.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know you got a crowd here waiting for you.
Okay.
This alliance with the fascists from the time of World War II, even before World War II, when the Brown Brothers Harriman, the big private investment firm on Wall Street, the CEO of which was George Herbert Walker, who was the grandfather of George Herbert Walker Bush. That's all right. I mean, I drank out of it already. Oh, that is. But everything's good. I'm very healthy. David, let's start with you. This quest that you've been on for a long time now. How many years?
He's an old friend of mine. Actually, he was responsible for me appearing on Ancient Aliens a long, long time ago. We just take another year. They just keep going. And I'm going to put some words in your mouth. You're also here because of the guy next to you, Eric von Daniken. Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Hello. There is no question that I'm here because of this man, one of the most generous people I've met in my life. Because when I was little, my grandmother, she was a very devout Catholic. She would go to church almost every Sunday. But dinner table conversations with her were always interesting because before I even knew about this guy, she was talking about extraterrestrials, about Atlantis, about alternative history. And now remember that these were conversations that took place in the 70s. My grandmother was someone who was open-minded yet still a Catholic. And she told me that, you know, those two can be reconciled because we're all alive together. The entire universe is alive, so which means everything is part of everything anyway. And she led me down this path of questioning or asking questions. And when I was in my teens, I read one of his books and I was done for. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Giorgio. I too have been influenced a lot by Eric von Daniken. When I was a teenager, and I bought the paperback version of Fingerprints of the Gods, that's all I could afford, Chariots of the Gods as well, his book. I showed it to my mother. Now, she had already given me the Walter Sullivan We Are Not Alone book. I brought her the Eric von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, and I'm showing her these pictures of these Nazca lines. I said, look, Mom, there's a monkey, but you can only see it from above. Why? And she said, well, because they made them for the extraterrestrials. She already knew about Eric. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric von Daniken.
Yes, thank you. Now, I do not want to repeat the story, how it all started. I mean, I have told this.
I ask you that every year, too, don't I?
Many years, yes. But Chariots of the Gods, in Chariots of the Gods, I had 238 question marks. Nobody read the question marks. I was accused and crashed down by the critics in that time, 1968, 1969. Eric von Daniken said, I'm sorry, it ended with a question mark. No one saw the question marks. Anyhow, in the meantime, I have come up with a total of 40 titles on the subject. And of course, I have learned a lot, I have seen a lot, I have been traveling throughout the world. I don't know, certainly made more than 1 million kilometers. I have a big archive. Somewhere here around is a young man. His name is Ramon. He's my secretary. And in our archive we have, you don't believe it, more than 200,000 pictures, slides, which I made worldwide. 200,000 slides. Of course, I was in Nazca already in the beginning of the 60s, 1961 for the first time. And Nazca was not known to the public. It all started to be known because of my book. In the meantime, I am a honorary member of this small place, city of Nazca, and I want to tell you the story, how this happened. Practically every 3 or 4 years, I guide some tourists down to Nazca. Nazca is in Peru, 500 kilometers south of Lima. And normally with tourists in the evening, you are drinking and drinking and talking and talking. And so around midnight, we had enough alcohol. And I said to my fellow travelers, listen, tomorrow morning, there is a local guide. He will bring you out to the small airport and you fly in the early morning, because you have to fly in the early morning because of the light. You fly over the plain of Nazca. Let me sleep, let me stay in bed. I can help you nothing up there. It's all small aircraft. But the next morning, 8 o'clock, somebody was knocking on my door. And you know, it was very hot, the air condition did not work. I was a little wet, just in my underpants. I went to the door, and there were 2 policemen with black mustache, black eyes. Everyone had a rifle on his back. And one of them asked me, Senor, Usted es Señor von Däniken? Are you Mr. von Däniken? I said, yes. And my first impression was, I'm arrested. You're always arrested in the early morning. I don't understand why. And then I said to myself, now, what do they want? And they say, por favor, please come with us. So I simply took a t-shirt over and I asked myself if I should take a toothbrush or something with me. And I went with these two policemen just maybe 1 kilometer, and there is something like a city house, a city place. Ja, das Bürgermeisterhaus, was heißt das? City Hall, okay. And there's a garden, and in the garden there were many hundred people, and also school boys and school girls. And when the teacher saw me arriving with the two policemen, he started to sing. And for the first time I had the impression, this is not an arresting. When you are arrested, they don't sing for you. But my head was still heavy from the alcohol of the last night. And then we came to this city hall, and everyone was drinking in the early morning. You know, the local drink is pisco sour. And everybody was drinking with me and said, felicitas, felicitas, that means congratulate you. I didn't understand for what the hell, congratulate you. Then we went to the city hall, and there were a lot of people, and I was sitting right to the mayor, and he came up with Nazca. He was telling every theory about Nazca. He said, Professor X says it's that and that, Professor Y said that, Professor etc., Maria Reich, etc. About 20 different theories. And then he said at the end, and here is Mr. von Däniken, he believes that Nazca has to do with extraterrestrials. And he was quiet in the room, and he said, we, citizens of Nazca, we live here, we don't know what it is. But Mr. von Däniken brought us a lot of tourists. That's why I was honored. In the meantime, of course, I have learned that every society has its zeitgeist, spirit of time. And we are the first society which has a spirit of time. We can think about travel, about spaceships, about space, and all these things. Our forefathers couldn't. I mean, when my grandfather would have made translations out of the Bible, of course the translations end in a religious sense, in a psychological sense. In the meantime, we have another spirit of time, and we have the possibilities to see at all these translations with different eyes. And that's what I suggest. I know we live in a society which wants to be reasonable. Our scientists, mostly, they are reasonable. They all want to be reasonable. They tell us it's not possible to travel between the stars because the distance is too big. It's light years measuring. Or extraterrestrials would never look like us. Evolution will develop in a complete different way, etc., etc. And all this is reasonable. And we want to be reasonable. The problem is, some guys like me come up with questions, and the questions are unreasonable. But we live in another spirit of time. And that's why we should start maybe to think the unreasonable way. And we will come to new questions. And that's what I try. Yesterday, at the end of my speech, I made clear whatever I do in my books has nothing to do with the new religion. You don't have to believe a word in what I write or say. I will turn myself in my tomb if some people come up and create a new religion of what I do. That's not what I want. I want a discussion. I want a little bit unreasonable. Just look at these things with new eyes. That's my desire. That's why I do my job.
Well, welcome to Contact in the Desert. There's my buddy Mike Barra. Michael. What an amazing crowd. For the first time in my broadcasting career, I can now actually talk to you in my real voice without having to put on that phony broadcast voice. So here we go. I am so happy to be here. I wanted to be at this event every year. And you don't know how hard it hurts to strain my voice to talk like that other guy on the radio. I am so at ease. Look at Jimmy Church, who does great backup work for us on Coast to Coast. But this evolution has been just remarkable because I have an opportunity to broadcast to you. And that is worth everything I've done. Life is full of synchronicities. When I was a 21-year-old radio reporter, on a deep emotion, you'll understand why. 21 years old. I'm in Detroit, and I want to cover a story. I'm a radio reporter. And my news director said, no, you're not going to cover this guy. It's a great story. You're not going to cover this guy who handles UFOs. That's not news. I want you to cover murders and fires. I said, no. No, I'm going to cover this story on my own time. Thanks for having the patience on this story. I went and covered that story on my own. One of my greatest interviews was my first interview. It was with Stanton Friedman. All these years later, I will never forget that story. Stan doesn't remember who I am, but I will never forget that story. Now, this guy went through a heart attack a year ago, and here he is. 2 years ago. I'm really good. She's going to go on the flat.